bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right, welcome. How you doing? Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Today is Monday, January 6th, 2025. Yeah, I blew out my throat. I'm gonna sound like NPR tonight. So, Jason. Yeah, there you go. All right, kicking off another brand new week here on Fade to Black. Tonight, Jason Quitt is with us, and we've got a great week coming up, and I want you to help support everything that we do around here by getting yourself a Fade to Black T-shirt. Very easy to do. We have 2 shirts, 2 ways to get them. The links are below. Game Changer membership or order a T-shirt. Order both, right? Everything's autographed, includes shipping. This week on Fade to Black tonight, Jason Quitt is with us. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the gates of the Anunnaki. Tomorrow night, Fritz Zimmerman is here. Ancient America, the Dark Side. Wednesday night, Whitley Strieber, who's got a new book out called The Fourth Kind. And then Thursday is our annual Conscious Life Expo 2025 preview special event with Serena Wright-Taylor and Christine Augustin. They are both with us, and that is Thursday night. Now, I've got 5 major events coming up. Of course, the Conscious Life Expo. Jason's going to be there, right? And that is February 7th through the 10th, 2025. After that, Rise of the Guardians. That's March 29th and 30th, 2025, Sedona, Arizona. Then the Contact Modalities Expo. That is May 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. 2025 in Delavan, Wisconsin at Delavan Lake. And then Contact in the Desert. Yes, May 29th through June 3rd in Palm Springs. Check this out. Yeah. You would think I did that. I did not. Contact in the Desert did a bunch of artwork and sent it to me over the weekend. So there you go. The Jimmy Church. And this is for Friday night. I will be hosting their opening event, the speaker meet and greet and party. So that is Friday night. And I will be there all weekend. So I'll see you guys at Contact in the Desert. And yeah, looking pretty dapper there. I don't know where they got that picture from. I don't. But man, yeah, looking pretty good. Looking pretty good. And then right after that, the Peru Inca Celebration of the Sun. With Brian Forrester. That is June 17th through the 27th, 2025. Brian, let me know today, this morning, there are just 5 spots left for this trip. So if you want to go, you got to get on right now. Okay, so we have 5 spots left, and that is June 17th through the 27th. The links are below. It's Hidden Inca Tours. Okay, very simple. I want to remind everybody that is listening to this on the podcast without any illustrations, okay? You can go to our YouTube channel and check out everything there. Jason, as always, has got a lot of stuff that he is going to present tonight, and so there will be some illustrations and stuff, lots of numbers, you know how Jason does it. Anyway, just head over to our YouTube channel, and there is a link for this in the description box in the podcast where you can go if you want to go and check out all of the illustrations. All right, so tonight, Jason Quitt is with us. He's got a new book out. It's called The Gates of the Anunnaki. He's just written an article that is up on his website. And this is part of that. The article was just released, so we're going to do that too as well. No stranger to the audience here at Fade to Black. Jason has been with us since the beginning. He's a graduate of the Institute of Energy Wellness. He's a student of the Algonquin Shamanism and has been training and working with many teachers, shamans, and traditional healers from around the world. He is also the author of Astral Genesis, the Egyptian Postures of Power Ancient Qigong System, and the Yosef Codes, Sacred Geometry Mandalas. His website, of course, is thecrystalsun.com. The links for the Crystal Sun are below on our website and throughout social media. I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black the one and only Jason Quitt. Jason, good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for having me back so soon, and always a pleasure to be here.
You know, does it surprise you that so many now look at you as Quitspiracy?
You know what? I'm very proud of it.
Yeah, me too.
I'm very proud of it. I love it. It's so much fun. And, you know, just a little history. I'm always about the history is when we started Quitspiracy, it was because me and you would just talk on the phone. And we would go over the nuttiest things because at that time, there was a lot of conspiracies going on online. So every day there was this new thing that was either really garbage or something to think about. We tend to tune into more of the garbage because it was funnier, you know? So we were like, you know what, maybe we should just, you know, to talk about these conspiracies that are going around the internet that are getting a lot of clicks, maybe we should either debunk them or confirm them using the pipe system. So it was a lot of fun. It still is a lot of fun. And I am so surprised when I have people that I've never met before, never seen online, message me or sent, or even in public when we're doing the shows, go, I love Quitspiracy. So
Yeah.
that's pretty great. So thank you for that, for hosting that.
And no, thank you. And it's great when things resonate with people. You know, that's your barometer. We did and still do Quitspiracy because you and I enjoy it, right? That's why we do it. We don't do it for the public, right? But that if they resonate with it, that's the bonus. But what people get is two friends talking about some crazy conspiracy and what you and I think about it. And it forces people to, you know, listen, and you and I don't agree on everything, right? No. And they get that. That's the other bonus, right? You and I get to argue about a conspiracy. And
no, I was just going to say, and I still think that one of the shows we did was very dangerous. And I think that's why I lost all my social media. Because it was that week. It just went gone. Everything I built was erased after that show.
Yeah. And, you know, and here we have, I don't do politics on the show, but I do the Quitspiracy of politics. Okay. There's a difference. There's a big difference. And the people that come here know that they are going to have a politics-free broadcast, right? It's just not going to happen. And I used to dabble in it too. And man, it's just, I'm just so glad those days are gone. Anyway, but when you get into the conspiracy of politics, I don't think anything is more conspiratorial or has more conspiracies tied to it than states, state actors, politicians, religions, and so forth. And that's the crazy part about it, is you can dabble into the conspiracy of politics, but more than likely there's some truth to it somewhere, you know. And that's the, you just got to, you know, you got to figure out what that kernel may be. And then, well, Canada woke up today to find themselves in their own Quitspiracy. And I gotta say, man, okay. So again, this isn't a political show, but there's some funny business going on here. And I don't know exactly what it is. So the world woke up today with Justin Trudeau saying, I quit, right? And the other part, now we're going to get straight back to you in Canada, but this is going on all around the world right now. That we have, look at South Korea. South Korea raided the president's home with an arrest warrant over the weekend. You know, that, what? You know, South Korea, right? The most conservative, and Syria and so forth, right? And the last thing we saw coming was Canada. Did you guys see this coming? What went through your mind when you woke up this morning to the news?
Okay, well, as a Canadian and being non-political, I'm just going to put this out there, and as a Canadian, I'm going to be as polite as possible as I talk about this. And I'm only going to bring the facts to this conversation, because most people just read the headlines or see small blurbs about it online. I do follow politics very closely here in Canada, and it's been a real mess for a very long time. And it's been such a mess that there has been many scandals on top of scandals on top of scandals. And for the past 2 months in Canada, in Parliament, which is a little different than the American style governance, but you'll understand it. But in Parliament, we have MPs, and basically they've found corruption in a lot of funding that has gone through. So they've asked the government for documents, and the government has not handed those documents over. And when they do, they're all, It's redacted. It's all redacted.
Of course.
So, but they're not allowed to do it. It's illegal for them to do that. So they basically have stalled the Parliament for about 2 months now, and they refuse to release these documents because it would basically show the corruption, the high level of corruption going on in the government. So before the winter break, or before Christmas holidays here, every single opposition party in Canada came together and said, the moment Parliament reopens, which would have been today, but it would have been officially on Wednesday, that all the parties would do a non-confidence vote and basically call for an election this month.
So that's the conspiracy.
Yes.
Right. And so let's back up for a second. Conspiracy in its classical definition is 2 or more people conspiring to commit a crime. Okay. Now we have the pop culture thing, right? UFOs or whatever, and the conspiracy behind that, and climate change and the conspiracies, whatever. But if we stay right there for a second, by Trudeau announcing today and then freezing Parliament, everything that was being worked on in Parliament gets dismissed. Yes. Right? Now, wait a minute. He was facing some pretty heavy stuff. And so by announcing the resignation, freezing Parliament, which then drops everything that they are working on only to select another leader for the country, right? That's the spirit of it, to free up their time so they can focus on this, right? But it's also his get out of jail free card, right? And am I looking at this the wrong way? And doesn't that feel conspiratorial to you?
It absolutely does, because everybody knew that we were going to head into an election. All the pollings suggested that the Trudeau Liberals were going to have a massive loss. And when I mean a massive loss, I mean they were basically going to lose almost all of their seats in Parliament, which is unheard of. It's one of the most biggest losses, I think, in Canadian history. So this was all known leading up to this. And basically, it's called proroguing the parliament. And he basically shuts everything down, reshuffles all the MPs. And when this happens, nothing will get done. And all the things that were supposed to get done, it's basically lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, it's completely gone. It just gets dropped and they have to start over.
Yeah. So any corruption,
now-
anything like this is just, now it's under the rug.
Right. It sounds like when these ideas are put forward for the government of Canada, the ideas for this are probably good spirited, right? I mean, it's like it's got a good foundation to it, but the wrong person can take advantage of that. And is it just that Canadians are too nice? You know what I mean? And just to allow this to happen, that's the first question. Second question is this. You guys are supposed to be nice. What do you mean corruption at every level?
When I mean corruption is that what they've been finding is that a lot of taxpayers' money is going to programs that are either friends with people working in the government or even the MPs themselves and their companies, and then they can't account for it. So all the audits that they're doing on it are basically failing. And a lot of people are losing their jobs or resigning because they're catching on that they've been taking government contracts when they shouldn't. Money is going to their friends. Large amounts of money is unaccounted for. So that's what I mean by corruption. And so there's a lot of inquiries right now going on in Canada, and all of this is basically, and there's also foreign interference in the government. There's a big report coming out at the end of the month on foreign interference. There was a lot of shady stuff going on behind the scenes.
Now the conspiracy theorist, the conspiracy mongers, that are online, which there are billions, are now saying this is timed to bring in Canada as the 51st state, right? And so now we have let's just get that the timing is kind of suspect here. It feels really strange to me. What are Canadians saying about this without bringing in American politics? So we'll keep American politics out. But what do Canadians follow American news more than they follow Canadian news?
Yeah. And
so they see what's right.
Oh, yeah. It's anytime someone says something that's at that level, it's talked about across Canada. So,
okay.
As the 51st state, I thought it was very funny, but we do have a lot of taxes here. There would be a lot of benefits joining with America, but I doubt in my lifetime that that is a serious outcome.
Stranger stuff. Man. Now we've got, I know, right? This is Quitspiracy at its finest. We have a very large Canadian audience, and they know how much I love Canada. You know how much I love Canada. I just love Canada. I love everything about Canada. And I make jokes all the time. And if I stop joking about you, there's a problem. There's no love. If I'm messing with you and talking that shit, I love you. And that's the same thing with Canada, right? And so I'm looking here at the chat. Let's all of our Canadian listeners right now, what do you make of this 51st state thing? Are you okay with it? I just want to see your comments. Are you okay with this kind of chatter? Now, I understand you personally don't think this would happen in your lifetime. What's the talk on the street? What are other people saying about this?
I would really think that there is a portion of the population that would love it. And the first thing I thought of was if this happens, Florida is going to be overpopulated. So we're all going to go to Florida.
What about California?
You know, if you're on the West Coast already, for someone in Ontario like me, it's very easy just to go south or straight to Florida.
Just straight to Florida?
Just straight to Florida.
Okay.
And
all right.
I'll be very happy there. I think. So that'll solve a lot of problems. I mean, you know what? I'm kind of joking around. We had a terrible, terrible storm in the past couple of days. And I swear I've shoveled the snow at least 6 times. And it's the snow is higher than me in the piles that I've been making. So it's like all I'm thinking of is, man, it's like you're in California. Do you have to go shovel?
Somebody just said we'll take BC, but they can keep Quebec.
But that's your favorite place. That's your favorite place.
Man, I love Montreal.
Yeah.
I've said this a million times. The best, I know this sounds funny, the best Italian meal I ever had in my life, and I've had many, was in Montreal. And I think you and I talked about it one night. And then I even said the name of the restaurant, and then it popped up in the chat. And then I got a bunch of email. It's a restaurant that's still in business called the Tre Marie, 3 sisters. I think three sisters named Marie or something, the Tre Marie. And that's how much I just man, Quebec, Montreal, not my favorite part of the country, but I did have the best Italian meal ever. I like Toronto. I do. I like Vancouver. I like all of the middle provinces too as well. I do. Canada's just a great country. I'm just the timing of this with all of the flux and the things that are happening around the world. And it's not just, it's not just the Middle East. Obviously it's going down in Korea. France is always going through something. Germany's always going through something. The UK is always going through something, and another prime minister and everything else. And it's just with everything that is happening, the new year and all this craziness suddenly, and this 51st state conversation, Trudeau just up and resigns. Yeah, very strange. And the way that he did it, that allows him to skate or he avoids getting fired. He avoids getting embarrassed in an election later on this year, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All the actions in Parliament go away. It's very strange, man. Very conspiratorial.
And right now, there's a threat of economic tariffs against Canada. And this is supposed to be a time where all the MPs get together and trying to figure out a plan so we don't have an economic problem with the United States. So there is a looming crisis this month happening where we may get tariffs. And he has shut down Parliament till the end of March, which means there is no government working on this right now. There's no public debate on it. There is nothing being passed. So it's basically who's in charge here? What's happening? It's not fair to the Canadian people that we have to kind of wait now. And probably the first time the next non-confidence vote will come, it'll probably be at the end of March, early April. And if that does come up, a no confidence vote does come up, it means that there may be an election coming up in June. So think of how far we're in January right now. We could have had a no confidence vote this week. And now it's pushed so much that he will basically stay in power until June, at least.
Man. Quitspiracy. So tonight wasn't supposed to be quitspiracy number whatever, but getting close to it. All right, now, wow. Yeah. Let's move on. I mean, just a crazy day. I don't know what I expected to see this morning, but I'll say that was the last thing that I thought I was going to wake up to. I know that it was bubbling up there and there was things happening, and what your head of finance just quit a couple of months ago, and she exited with some pretty flaming things about Trudeau, and yeah, wow, crazy. And here's the other part before we move on. Canada pays attention to the news in the United States. The United States doesn't pay attention to Canada. Do you follow what I'm saying? It's the opposite. All of the stuff that came out of the news today was like, wait, what? It's the first time most of us down here have heard anything about any of this, because we don't follow the news up there. It's a very strange paradox. It's not a fair trade back and forth. We don't pay attention to the news of Canada,
and Canadians don't either. And this is a big issue I found, because even myself growing up, I have to admit that I knew like everything going on in the United States. So I would watch American news. I did not follow anything in Canada. And I think that's why we got Trudeau in the first place. It's because not a lot of people were paying attention.
You know, back in the day, I say this all the time, and I say this in jest a little bit. He just seems so hip and cool, right? Biker jacket, leather jacket, you know, chain smoking Gitans, you know, drinking espresso in Montreal. And just, he had this flair about him, but no, it didn't quite turn out that way.
No, I mean, and I'll just tell you from the side of ignorance. So I will admit ignorance here, because I wasn't aware of politics back then, and I wasn't really following anything. I knew the government before the Stephen Harper government was in for a long time, probably about 9 years, just as Justin Trudeau. And at the end of that career, people were really hating on it. He had some pretty bad, or he did pretty bad decisions on certain things. So there was a lot of anger towards the Conservatives back then. And then you have this fresh guy, Trudeau, coming out, going against, he's the opposition against Stephen Harper and the Conservatives. And I remember back then, you know, he was all about, you know, liberal policies. And one of them was he was going to legalize marijuana. And that was like a big debate point. He was going to legalize marijuana. And when he won, that was the first thing he did. And for me, that was absolutely fantastic because
right, of course.
And no, it's fun because it's like around that time, 2016, 2017 is when I broke my back, and it was like I had my medical marijuana license. They said I can grow my own plants. Like instead of going on opioids, I was getting government marijuana. It's like, and so in my mind, I'm like, wow, this is amazing that, you know, now my government now supports me where I can make those choices and it's not illegal. I can help myself in this way. But it's like, you know, what are the things that we lost as well? So you have to kind of like weigh these things. So that was before I was really into politics.
So crazy, man.
Yeah.
So crazy. These next few months and the next year, the whole world is just on pins and needles, you know, and it's not just one specific thing. And then you have to look at the geopolitical environment around the world when it comes to Iran, right, is in play now. Jordan's in play. Israel's always in play, but you have Pakistan, you have Turkey, and the stability of the region and what's going on over there. It's always a tinderbox, but right now, you know, it's just gotten crazy, the whole thing. So, and then of course, you know, what's going on with Ukraine and Russia and Europe in general. Absolutely nuts. And then who would have thought, you know, stable South Korea, right? It's like, what? So, all right, moving on. You're coming down And we're doing 2 events together very quickly here.
Yeah.
And the first one is the Conscious Life Expo. And you and I are doing events all weekend long together. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll talk about all of that on Thursday night when Serena and Christine are here. But backing up, so I saw your article that you posted for Gates of the Anunnaki. And now the Anunnaki have never been as present and discussed more than right now at this point in history. It's an amazing conversation. But who were the Anunnaki?
All right. So being in this community and growing up in this, you can see the books behind me. And I have another bookshelf in front of me, which I did actually build by hand. I'm seeing people asking about this in the chat. I don't know why you're asking about this. But yes, I built the shelves in the back, and there's an L-shaped one in front of me there. It's all full of books. And I have Zecharia Sitchin's books. So as I was getting into this information, ancient history, you kind of start with this kind of ancient alien hypothesis, and you start out with Eric von Daniken, Chariots of the Gods. You start out with the 12th Planet, Zecharia Sitchin, and you read these books, and it's just like mind altering. Like, you're not the same after reading these books. You're very impressionable when you're starting to get into this. And so I came into this scene with the impression of this kind of ancient alien hypothesis. And the Anunnaki were the gods that came from heaven. They're the ones who created mankind to be slaves, to mine for gold. Michael Tillinger wrote a really excellent book way back in the day. I have it somewhere here. But basically, it talks about the altering of the DNA and all these things. So growing up, I kind of had this idea of what the Anunnaki was. Now, recently, many people are discussing it. Even like Billy Carson, he's doing really well, like putting out all those videos on the Anunnaki and the gods. And as I was doing research on them to write my new book, which was Gates of the Anunnaki, well, it was before writing that book, I decided, I said, you know what, all the tablets are free. You can literally go online and look at these tablets and see the translations. There's many different translations, and they're all available. It's all public domain. So you could basically go online and read all these tablets. And so I said, you know what, I've read, all the interpretations of Zecharia Sitchin and other authors or prominent researchers. And I just started to read it myself. And my background is really into symbology, mysticism, esoteric things. So I'm really, really into the ancient mysteries, especially Egyptian ancient mysteries, Hermeticism, things of that nature. And so I started to read these tablets, starting with the Illuma Elesh, which is a later Babylonian creation story. And, you work your way backwards, like the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Descent of Inanna, things of that, just basically the epic tales. And as I'm reading the translations, from an esoteric point of view, I'm reading it with completely different eyes. And as I'm reading it, it became so obvious to me that my worldview was wrong. And what I believed originally didn't really hold up once I started to read the original texts.
Okay, let's clarify that statement.
Yes.
Your worldview being what you had established from Sitchin and other researchers' interpretations of the Sumerian tablets. Is that what you're referring to?
That is what I'm referring to. So okay. I came into it with that belief. I did not come out of it with that.
So belief. Okay.
Yeah.
So again, in the interest of transparency,
yes,
the Anunnaki arriving here 500,000 years ago, the wars in the solar system, the mining of gold, their planet needing gold powder, distributed into the atmosphere because their atmosphere had deteriorated and the planet was desolate, right? And so they needed to repair the planet. And in doing so, they had their own workers here that didn't work out. So they looked at us, Homo sapiens sapien, well, at the time, some other species, and then created us to work for them. And then we got smarter, but they were done. So they split and just kind of left us planet Earth, right? So you're saying that whole thing is now put to the side and you're reading the Sumerian text with a new set of rose-colored glasses.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Gotcha. And the only reason that view changed with me is because when I was reading it, the texts themselves were very, there was many levels of symbology in them. And it was the same type of symbology that I've seen in Egyptian texts that later moved on to the Greeks. And it's what we have in Hermetic texts. So, and you even helped me with this book, The Gates of the Anunnaki. And the first half of this book is actually breaking down the entire stories of these tablets. So I took the translations right from the texts and we kind of go through them line by line and analyze what they mean or what they say and what does it mean esoterically. And as I was going through it, for me, it was revealing astrological cycles. It had to do with the stars. And I always refer to the pyramid text of Unas, which is found in Saqqara.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a text kind of similar to the Egyptian Book of the Dead, but it's for the pharaoh. And it's the oldest litany texts ever found in Egypt. So it's one of the oldest stories, the pyramid text of Unas, and basically it's very different than what we find in the Egyptian Book of the Dead. And what's different is that the perspective and point of view of this text puts the pharaoh as one of the gods. And he's not just one of the gods, he becomes every single one of the gods. And as he's going into the afterlife, he's traveling into the heavens, which is the stars. And through every constellation or every star that he passes through, those star systems become the gods. They are the gods. So, for example, everybody knows the constellation Orion is connected to Osiris. So it's like as he goes to Orion, which is the god Osiris, he then becomes Osiris. So it's kind of like this transformation of turning into each god until he basically ascends to the northern heaven, which is the imperishable stars, which is the northern hemisphere of heaven, the North Star, which at that time would have been Thuban in the constellation Draco. Now it's Polaris.
Polaris, yeah.
But it's this whole story of the journey through the stars, becoming the gods who were the stars, and then becoming the sun, like Horus, who gets resurrected as the morning sun and rises again. So it's this whole resurrection story and passing through the stars. So I find this parallel of a perspective, this hidden perspective of this journey of, let's say, the hero, the child, the solar deity who travels through the sky and through the different planets or constellations, which creates the seasons and divides the heavens into different stories. So it has this very hermetic idea of as above, so below, so that they would link, when you look up at the sky and see the stars, they would link those stars to whatever is happening on the earth during those times and seasons, and they would create these symbolic stories about it. So, you know, I know this was very long-winded, but going back to the original point of this, as I was reading these tablets, I was blown away by all this esoteric knowledge of the stars, the seasons and cycles that were hidden within the gods and their journeys themselves. So it took me into a completely different arena than the gods coming down to earth and creating mankind and all this stuff. There was a much deeper, much richer context that was basically calling me out and saying, pay attention to this side of these texts. So that is where the idea of it. So right now, everybody's talking about the alien gods coming, creating mankind as physical beings, the Anunnaki. And from my perspective, from the text, it's the gods are the stars. They didn't come from the stars. They are the stars. And it's this epic story that's written in the stars, and the sun and the moon and the planets all play a role in this story. So for me, I'm trying to piece that story all together because I think it's the oldest story ever told by mankind. And that is the story that created civilization.
What I find really interesting, and it's not the lack of some of the other points that were made by Sitchin and others over the years, not being present in the Sumerian text, because I don't read cuneiform. Very few people on this planet do, but we have software that does now, and all of the translations for just about every piece of Sumerian text that is out there is available, and you can go and check it out. So I started doing just that. And it's not the lack of things that, the things that I wasn't finding. Yeah, I'm going to go look for gold. I want to see how many times it was mentioned in the Sumerian text. But there's 2 points that Sitchin and others have made that is in lockstep with anthropology and history and science. And that is this: Homo sapiens sapien just appeared 200,000 years ago. We don't have a fossil record. We don't have the Darwin millions of years of evolution that should have played into that. Homo sapiens sapien just appeared, and we just appeared with 46 chromosome pairs instead of 48, like the other primates. And that happened 200,000 years ago. Coincidentally, the same numbers that were thrown around by Sitchin and other fringe researchers. And I don't think that that's coincidence. Now, I'm not saying that supports the rest of the story. Okay, but history will be the judge of that. But I find that very, very, very strange, because anthropologists and biologists and everybody else can't explain that part of Homo sapiens sapien just appearing. But that's where the Anunnaki creation story fits very conveniently into a possibility of how we got here. Now, what do you make of that?
I cannot explain our origin. So I'll just put it out there, that's a mystery. So we're still going to do this. And I'm trying to remember the exact date, because I know the Sumerian Kings list, for example, first starts, if you actually go back and look at the dates. Hold on 1 second. I got it right here. Yeah. So it's 241,200 years.
Right.
All right. And this is the date from the Sumerian Kings list that talks about a time that is 5 kingdoms and 8 kings before the flood. And then you have after the flood, where you have these god kings now coming back and rebuilding the cities and having new kingdoms and new rules. And if you go back through those dates, it comes to about 241,000 years. So it's a mystery that I tried to piece together in this book. And the numbers themselves are very, very interesting because it has to do with sacred geometry, and it also has to do with cycles of time. So all of these numbers that we find in the King's List, they're based on the number of 60, 600, and 3,600. So they call it a shar, and divisions of this base 60 numbering system. And this base 60 numbering system is where we divide the heavens, where we get time from. We still use 60 minutes to an hour, 60 seconds to a minute. These are Sumerian calculations that we're still using today. And these are the numbers that are used in the King's List. And when you put those numbers together, it creates a very interesting sacred geometry, which we explore in the Gates of the Anunnaki, which is basically the geometries of the flower of life. So there is a knowledge there when we dive into the numbers. And I know it doesn't answer the question, where did we come from? How did we get this DNA upgrade from? I understand it doesn't solve that problem, but it shows that humanity itself has a knowledge that is very advanced, very technological, and we still use it today. But how did these people 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 years ago at least have this information of these numbers, of these astrological cycles? How did they acquire this knowledge to start their civilization? So there is still a great mystery, and I don't think anybody can tell you this is the case or that's the case. We could just see the mystery.
Okay. Now that all sounds great.
Okay.
That all sounds great, except we are talking about the possibility of an advanced civilization. Now, it could be, spaceships and laser beams, right? It could be that, or it could be advanced as far as understanding the stars and math and everything else, and advanced, and ability to write and things, which is advanced. But if that's the case, what is more frightening? That there was something before us, right? That was here, that taught Homo sapien stuff that was then put into writings 5, 6, 7,000 years ago, right? 3,000 BC, 4,000 BC, and the ancient Sumerian texts, as well as walls and sculpture and art. What would be more terrifying? Right, to the world? I'm not so sure that either answer is the safe one.
And I think someone like Graham Hancock's now that is putting this information out on Netflix. It opens up an idea that there was an advanced civilization before some cataclysm, and then after this cataclysm, they went to find different pockets of the surviving humanity to reteach them and to help them, become civilized again with this knowledge. When I hear that theory, I don't think it's too far off. I think, it makes a lot of sense that there could have been a great knowledge back then, and that knowledge was not lost, but kind of given to certain groups to flourish in a post-apocalyptic flood that occurred. And that's what we find in all these stories, that something did occur on the planet. And we even see it in our mythology. When everybody looks up to the sky and looks at Orion as another example. And they call it the Great Hunter. Why do they call it the Great Hunter? during that time of the year when Taurus and Orion is in the air or in the night sky, we go through a meteor shower called the Orinoids or Toroid meteor shower. And when you look up into the heavens, these meteors coming through the sky, they look like an archer shooting its bow and arrow into the sky, like the war in heaven. And I think that during that time period, Orion, the great hunter, killed everything on Earth. And that's the mythology, is that there was one time Orion, the hunter, killed everything on the Earth with his arrows. So does that mean, our ancient ancestors are looking up at the sky during these meteor showers, and one of those meteors hits the Earth and created the flood, took out the animals and all this, and then thousands and thousands of years even after that, they're still telling the story of the great hunter that killed all the animals. So it's built into our mythology, and that is the way that this kind of information is passed down to us today. It's through these word of mouth stories from our ancestors.
If a text, if something was revealed that confirmed this, what would it take to convince academia? You know what I mean? Because no matter what is presented, there's a lot. Graham Hancock aside, okay, Graham Hancock, and I mean this with the utmost of respect, he's got a big fan base. So he's able to take these ideas and get them out there to a wider audience. He hasn't done any research. This stuff has already been there for forever, right? And it doesn't matter what we're talking about here or what aspect of it, but he has the ability to get it out to a larger audience. But that evidence that even he's been presenting, has been there for a long time. That hasn't stirred academia. It hasn't tipped the scales in one way or another. And even if it is presented, would it be enough to convince academia that there's something going on here? And if it is, what would it take? I'm not so sure, because the evidence is just piling up. I've been around the world, so have you. I've been to these places, I've seen them, and I know that we're not being told the truth. And it's something is holding all of this back. So what would it take, Jason?
Well, I'll just, put this out there is I've actually been having discussions with archaeologists that are working in universities right now, and I'm doing presentations for them. I'm showing them some things, and they find it incredible, but they even tell me it's like, this is not going to break through anything. It doesn't matter how much you yell at this. So something came up recently, and there's a group in Europe, and they have members now all over the world, and it's called the Institute of Natural Philosophy. Let me just pull up the URL to see if I'm correct. Yeah, Institute for Natural Philosophy. Institute for Natural Philosophy. And basically what they're interested in and what their goal is having real scholarly work of our ancient past, or what we would call fringe or alternative ideas, but presented by scholars, and to be put on the academic.eu website. So we would submit actual scholarly papers on this information, and bring these authors together in a place where we can have open discussion about our findings and our knowledge. And what just came out of this is they decided to launch a magazine called Pharos Magazine. And they asked me to be a part of the first issue. And the first issue is over 200 pages of scholarly work from alternative researchers that are painting an incredible new worldview of what is not being shared in academia. And I think that's what it's going to take, is that and a lot of these researchers, they do come from the scholarly side. They work with different universities, but they can't really present what they want to. So now there's a new outlet where people can come together and present their ideas that don't fit into this kind of natural order that they want to keep. So I think that's coming out soon. And I'll put a link up. I'll send you the link. Everybody could download this magazine for free. It's 200 pages of crazy research by amazing people.
Yeah, pop it up in the chat. I'm going to check it out too, as well. I'm here to learn with everybody else, man. I didn't know anything about this. Let's set up for our return. We're going to head out to a commercial break. When we come back, you just released this article. Where are we going to start with this article?
Well, for those of you that have read The Gates of the Anunnaki, this is building off that information. And basically, we're going to just jump right into it to kind of prove that there's something hidden within these ancient texts. And that's my goal, is to show you that there's a hidden language that nobody has really caught on yet too.
No, that's great. And it's going to be fascinating, but I want to know what's up with the purses. What's up with the purses?
Well, I could tell you symbolically what they mean, and it has to do with springtime and the wet season.
So no, you're wrong. You're wrong.
They're buckets of water.
No, it does not. What?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. Okay. It doesn't. It doesn't.
And
buckets of water
and the wristbands and the wristbands are chrysanthemum flowers.
I saw your post about that too as well. Man, that Canadian weed that Justin Trudeau's selling you.
Hey, don't you start. No.
We'll be right back after this short break. Jason Quitt is with us. This is Fade to Black. Stay with us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and get the Fade to Black official podcast. 2,000 episodes, all of them commercial free for just $2 a month. Watch Into the Vortex on Gaia TV. It's Fade to Black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Gaia.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's now called X, but who cares? How you doing? Jimmy Church here. Special announcement. Get your Fade to Black T-shirts. That's right. Help support the show. Help support everything that we do over here. We've got 2 T-shirts. We've got 2 ways to get them. Get your Fade to Black T-shirt today. Go Backley Tappy. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut. Today we're headed to Bolivia, Tiwanaku, Peru, and of course, Puma Punku. Brian, exciting. Thank you so much for everything, my friend.
Always an honor. Right behind us is the sacred river of the Inca that goes past Machu Picchu. So we're going to be driving up to its source at 15,000 feet above sea level and then down to Lake Titicaca.
So today we hit 15,000 feet.
Yes.
Crazy. And you can do it with us. All you have to do is go to hiddenincatours.com. Simple. We've got 2 tours coming up next year, one in June for the summer solstice, right? And then another one right here in November. So hiddenincatours.com. Come and hang out with Brian and I and his amazing team.
Right on.
River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. Whoa. What happened? What happened? Do I got to go like this? See, Jason, it was supposed to be the opposite. I'm supposed to come back like this and go, welcome back to Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Jason Quitt is with us. And now, Jason, getting back to what we were talking about right before the break. See, that's what's supposed to happen. Not you with the...
No, I was here for the whole commercial break. I was here. I couldn't leave.
Oh, really? Were you there on the side too as well?
Of course.
Oh man, what was I doing?
You were gone.
I
took control of the show. You didn't even see it.
No, I didn't see. Really? Do you have control? Are you in? Do you have control of the?
No.
Okay.
I don't. You're good.
Man, I'm all nervous. I'm all nervous now.
I did send you the link. I couldn't post it in the comments, but I sent it in the private chat, the link to the magazine. So
why couldn't you post it in the chat?
It said what did it say? It said something like I couldn't post it or go.
Okay. All right. Well, let's see if I can do it. Yeah.
There you go. See, you had to do it. So
Yeah,
you're in control.
I am in control. Man, I was getting nervous there for a second. So wait a minute. Okay, let's get back to the purses before we jump into this, because we got a lot of and for everybody that is out there listening to this on the podcast, there'll be a link below where you can go to our YouTube channel where you can follow along with all of the illustrations that we're going to post. But back to the handbags.
Yes.
This is my take. And I don't have anything to support this except for my eyeballs. Okay. Mm-hmm. But this is what I think. I think it's information. What do I mean by that? It's a briefcase. It's a backpack. It's a fanny pack. It is the briefcase with the nuclear codes, whatever it is that you want to, but we always have seen these leaders from around the world with their stuff, and they're carrying it with them. That's what I think is in the handbag, and it could be anything, but I'm saying it's not something like springtime and a bucket of water. Why would somebody carve buckets of water at Göbekli Tepe, ancient Sumer, all the way through to Peru? What? No, buckets of water. I just don't see that. I don't. Now, an important bag of information, a bundle of information, a briefcase of information, documents, treaties, information from the stars, whatever it could be, DNA. I think it's substantial what is in those purses. It's not water.
Okay. There's another theory. that is seen in different time periods. And you can see, you know, they're holding the pine cone in one hand, and they have the
Yep.
water bucket in the other hand, and
Yep.
they have the tree of life in front of them. And sometimes they're taking the pine cone and they're touching the flower of the tree of life. Well, that tree of life is the palm tree, and they have the palm tree's symbol on it. And what they used to do is they would take a bucket of pollen, and they would take the seed pouch of the pine tree and dip it into the pollen, and pollinate the date trees. And this was something they would do every springtime to get the dates growing.
See, now you are right, except for that's in metaphor. That's symbolic.
That's what I'm saying. It's symbolic. I'm symbolic. Strictly speaking, symbolic.
Now we're talking about DNA and the advancing of civilization. That I look at it that there's so much metaphor and symbolism in what you just said that it's way beyond, goes way far into the esoteric.
That's what I'm talking about. That's where I love is to go into the symbolism and the esoteric nature.
Yeah,
of that.
for sure. So I'm not here to debate Jason, but I love it when I'm right. Okay, so anyway, what you're going to be here for the Conscious Life Expo and Contacting the Desert, so 2 trips coming down. Are you going to be speaking directly about the gates of the Anunnaki at Conscious Life Expo?
I am. I'm going to give the big talk about it with all the new information. So I'm really excited.
Now be sure to tell everybody I wrote the foreword to the book.
Yes, he did. Jimmy Church wrote it, and it's a really good foreword. And guess what image I put for Jimmy Church?
As you should.
So there's your baskets, there's your pine cone, there's your tree of life.
As you should.
Yes.
See, that's correct. That's correct. Okay, so anyway, I'm just kidding. No, you don't have to mention that here on the show. I talk about it all the time. At the presentation, I think I'm going to be introducing you to as well. And we are, you're on my panel on Friday night. You're going to be at my luncheon on Sunday. I'm going to introduce you on Saturday. So yeah, man, we've got a very, very busy weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun. Okay. So let's start this rolling. Jason, I'm going to hand you the controls to the ship. Okay. You've got the helm. And where are we going to start?
I'll just start showing the magazine. And just tell me when. I can't see you now. So you got to tell me that you can see what I'm seeing.
Okay. Is that good enough?
Well, like I said, you have to tell me, is it on? Do you see Pharaoh's magazine?
Yes, I've got it up.
Okay, because that's all I can see. So that's what you have to tell me. Okay. All right, so this is the new magazine that everybody can download right now. 200 plus pages of incredible information from the Institute of Natural Philosophy, which I had the pleasure of writing the article. Here's the table of contents, and you can see on page 114, I wrote an article called Advanced Celestial Measurements and Astrological Cycles Within the Geometric Design Principles of the Ancient Gods and Goddesses. It's also the longest title of this magazine.
Yeah. You wrote that title.
I definitely wrote that.
You definitely wrote that title.
So, and you can see there's some great stuff on here. So I hope everybody downloads this magazine and gets their copies of it, because there's a lot of good information in it. So I want to just share. I'm not doing any writing or anything. I'm just going to show you some pictures. And so if you're hearing this just by listening to it on a podcast or wherever you're viewing it, if you go on YouTube, you could actually see these diagrams that I'm explaining to you. Because what I want to do is I want to show the actual symbols, the actual designs created by our ancient ancestors, and what they've encoded within it that we have completely lost our ability to see or understand. And I'm trying to reintroduce this information back into the public domain.
I love this.
So All I got to say is, for us to start to understand this information, we have to know that we are on a globe. You know, we're a planet, and our planet is not straight. It's actually tilted on its axis by 23.5 degrees. And because of the tilt, as we travel around the sun, this is where we get our seasons. And when we get to the equinox, we have 12 hours of light and 12 hours of dark. And when we get to the winter solstice, you have the most amount of night, the least amount of day. And in summer solstice, you have the most amount of light and the least amount of night. So very simple. As we travel around the earth, we have the cycles based on this 23.5 degree angle. So I remember I called Jimmy one night a couple of years ago, and you can go back to other shows to listen to that story. But basically, this is what I called him about. I said, I found something that's very interesting that tell me if I'm going crazy or not. Well, this is an illustration of Horus and Set from the tomb of Tusert in the Valley of the Kings in Egypt. And this is over 3,000 years old. And basically it shows Horus and Set in one body standing on a double-headed sphinx. And to the left and right of him, you have these beings, these people that are holding a rope, I guess to pull the rope. Now, this has to do with the secret of the pyramid, which I'll explain. The pyramid is an astrological clock, and this is one of its design functions. From the Sphinx, if you stand in front of the Sphinx, during the equinox, the sun sets behind Khafre, the middle pyramid. And as it sets behind Khafre, the secret is that the sun stands on the back of the Sphinx. And the day and night are equal at 12 hours of night and 12 hours of day. So you can see this image of Horus and Set in one body. It's the sun, the solar gods, standing on the back of the Sphinx. It's the sun standing on the back of the Sphinx. And another interesting thing, which I'll just point out, is that the Menkaure pyramid, the smaller pyramid, it's aligned to the Sphinx at exactly 18.5 degrees. And 18.5 degrees is a very important number in the moon. And it has to do with the lunar standstill cycle, which happens every 18.6 years. So every 18.6 years, it's called the minor lunar standstill, is 18.5 degrees of our Earth tilt. So the moon would actually set directly behind the Menkaure pyramid. So this is it's an astrological clock that measures the sun and the moon. Now, during the equinox, Khufu, the big Great Pyramid of Khufu, it's not four-sided, it's eight-sided. It's off by a degree. So you can see Khufu up here has a shadow. So during the equinox, you have half that's shadow and half that's light on the pyramid. It's exactly
which we didn't see until the solstice, and we happened to have a plane. I think it was a British plane actually, that was flying over it. Took a snapshot. This was in the 1930s. Took a snapshot, and everybody went, "Whoa, wait, what? The pyramid is eight-sided, not four." And this was a modern discovery, and it's absolutely incredible. So for everybody here, that what you're looking at, those three, that's the pyramids. That is the Giza Plateau. There's Menkaure down at the bottom, Khafre in the middle, Khufu on the top, and that's Khufu that looks like a Metatron cube, but it's not. That is the eight-sided pyramid that is up on the top. And you can see the Sphinx here. You can see east. You can see west. Summer solstice at the top, winter solstice at the bottom, and of course the 18.5 degree moon position, as the standstill behind Menkaure. All right, so that's what we're looking at here. Oh, also, if you look next to the Great Pyramid, those 3 boxes with X's in it, those are the Queen's pyramids that are in front of the Great Pyramid. So you understand the layout here. Okay, so continuing.
Yes. So you can see that Khufu during the equinox, the shadow is half light and half dark. So it's the same symbology as Horus, which represents the light, and Set, who represents the darkness in one body. So it's the division perfectly of this image. So symbolically, this image of the sun standing on the Sphinx is played out on the Giza Plateau every single year as an astrological clock. Okay. But now let's say, can we prove this? Can we?
Right.
Right
So
now,
Jason,
it's just
right,
yeah.
right. So we're going to move on.
Yeah.
So Jason calls me, and he was white as a ghost. He was.
Yeah.
And I said, "What's going on, man? And so anyway, with the crazy part about it was I was just in the Valley of the Kings in that chamber, and had just taken pictures of this, and Jason has a way of looking at something and then seeing through it in 3D and starting to extrapolate something else. It's not just a beautiful hieroglyph carved into a wall. And a hieroglyph carved into a wall becomes a hieroglyphic, by the way. That's the term. So anyway, and I went, wait a minute. And I flashed Jason the pictures. Something had drawn me to this specific image, and Jason was drawn to it too. And all of this research, it came off of that conversation when Jason called me, and all he wanted me to tell him was that he wasn't crazy.
Correct.
That's it.
That is the story.
I remember the first thing I said to you. I said, "How many days have you been up?" And you looked at me and you go, 3. I was like, "Oh man, dude." So anyway, let's move on. But that is the result of this, was that moment where Jason was able to look at what we're looking at here and see something else in the image.
So what I did was I knew that the pyramids had a specific geometry to them. And so I wanted to see if I could match the geometry of the pyramids to this image. And it was a perfect match. So what you're seeing, we can start at the center with Horus and Set. And you can see he has these 2 equal arms horizontally outstretched. And directly through his hands, where his thumb and fingers are, if you measure it from the bottom of the motif through his hands, it equals exactly 23.5 degrees. Now, again, what's so special about 23.5 degrees? That is the tilt of the Earth. All right. So that is a very special number that modern archaeology, modern history teaches us that that number was only discovered about 2,000 years ago. This is over 3,000 years ago. They already know this information. And they know it because they're using it to create their hieroglyphs. Now, if we go to the edge of the motif, like right at the bottom, and follow the red line, if we get from the bottom of the motif where the rope is at the bottom ends, directly into the eye of the individual on either side, from the eye to the floor is exactly 23.5 degrees.
Man, that's crazy to me.
Now, from the bottom of the floor through the hands and above the crown is 15 degrees. And then they have these 2 poles on either side at 30 degrees. So these are rope pullers. And what's happening is it's the motif of pulling the sun across the horizon. So they measured the sun moving across the horizon, and they figured out these angles. And not only did they figure out these angles, is they actually are telling you time, because from summer solstice to winter solstice is a 4-hour difference in time. So you gained 4 hours of darkness, or you gained 4 hours of light, and you're exactly equal in the middle at 12 hours. So each individual, the rope pullers are 4. So you're pulling to one side 4 hours, and you're pulling to the other side 4 hours. And the reason we know this is because of this 15-degree line and the 30-degree poles. 15 degrees equals 1 hour of time that the sun moves through the sky. So if at 30 degrees is 2 hours on each side. So which gives you 4 hours. So this is a time clock, a symbolic representation of the sun moving across the horizon. All right. So this is how the code goes. All right. So, we can look at the back of Tutankhamun's royal chair, which is around the same time period around. And you can see he's holding 2 palm staffs, and they have these little notches running up the staff. You have the solar disc above his head, and you have these 2 other solar discs or lunar discs at the top of the staffs. And this is reminiscent of the staff gods motif, which is found all around the world. And, I'm not going to break down entirely this whole image, but I just want to show you, once we apply this hidden code to this image, something really interesting happens. All right. I know it gets a little complicated, but when you put these geometries through, every single eye, okay, so this is important. Every single eye, like if you see the eyes of the serpents above the head, the eyes of the falcons, the eye of the serpent, and even the solar discs, they're aligned perfectly to this 23.5 degree angle, which means the composition of the image is created to hold the information of the sun. And then we also have the numbers at the end of the staff, which is 28.5 degrees, which is the major lunar standstill, which happens every 18.6 years. And then to the top of the crown of Horus, you have this spiral thing that is set to 18.5, which is the minimum or the minor lunar standstill. And even his eye, if you look at his eye, it goes at 15 degrees directly into the serpent and directly into the eye of the cow. So this is it's a symbolic representation of a calendar. All right, it's showing you the god as a calendar moving through the seasons from solstices and the cycles of the moon. And we find this going back even further. So on the left side, you have Horus, the Savior plaque, which is all the way from Middle to New Kingdom. And you have these 2 staffs next to him. And if you measure the staff into his eyes, again, it's at this 23.5 degree angle. And to the eyes of the serpent, it's 18.5, which is the moon, the lunar standstill in its minimum. Now, in Horus's hands, he's holding a lion, he's holding a scorpion, and he's holding an oryx. Now, these represent the solar cross of constellations of Leo, Scorpio, and Taurus. So basically, and he, as the sun, the new son of Horus, he actually represents Aquarius. All right, and this is why you have one animal missing. So on the other side of the image, we have almost the exact same type of relief, but it's found in Babylon. Not Babylon. This was Azaria back then. It's called the Burnaby relief, Queen of the Night, which is almost 4,000 years old. And her entire composition is also made up of these numbers. In fact, she's holding tools in her hands, and they are measuring tools. And they're turned, if you look closely, they're turned exactly to one of them at 23.5 degrees, which goes right into her eye. Remember, the eye and the hand is the secret here. Mm-hmm. And the other one is tuned to 15 degrees, which has to do with the hours. And in the Descent of Inanna, it talks about these tools. They're called the lapis, ruler, and line. Mm-hmm. And they're astrological measuring tools that they talk about. Mm-hmm. But you can see the top of her crown, if you measure it to the eyes of the owl, is 28.5 degrees, which is the major lunar standstill. And from her belly button and
Per
goes
PP.
goes into the eyes of the lions at 23.5 degrees. And lion is representative of not only the sun, but also the constellation Leo.
Of course.
So, here's even
No,
old.
no, go back to that
Yes.
image.
Yes.
I mean, it doesn't take much to see that these are the same images.
No.
Okay, so the symbology of where you have one, how do I want to say this? One deity standing on two crocodile, the other one standing on two lions, the representation of the owls on one side, and we have birds and animals on the other, but all coming to the same 23.5 degrees, right? 28.5 degrees. All of these are the same in both. And you look at both of these images where they are both holding something to lock in to get to these measurements and represent time. That's incredible to me. That's not an accident.
No, it's definitely not an accident. And the crazy thing about it is these gods also represent seasons or time periods.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And
Yes.
so now I'm going to ask a basic question and then we'll go on to the next image.
Sure.
What is your belief of who taught these two different cultures the same information? You have the same teacher. Who was it?
Well, they're separated by thousands of years, so it couldn't be a teacher. It had to have been a school of thought that's been passed down generation of generation.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that it would be a priestly class, someone that held very high knowledge of the stars. So like maybe astrologer priests, and they would teach the artists to create these different motifs to represent the stars. And then they would teach them, or like a secret society would teach only the initiated how to read these.
I think it was the Anunnaki from Atlantis.
Absolutely. Why not?
That's where I'm going. Yeah, why not? Okay, next image.
So this is also Ishtar, but this is even earlier. Okay, this is like 4,500 years of the cylinder seal. And she has these tools coming out of her back, these rods coming out of her back. And again, she's standing on the lion. You have the disc of Ishtar, or the solar disc of Ishtar there. And I know it's a little difficult to see, but when you measure this whole image, I know there's a lot of information on this one. But again, that knowledge, that astronomical knowledge of the tilt of the earth, the seasons, and the major standstills of the moon, those numbers were all incorporated within the building, the composition of the gods themselves. So now we're going back 44,000 years at least. And, this is a very easy one to see. So this is the tablet of Shamash, which is the solar deity. This is almost 3,000 years old as well. And you can see he's holding that same measuring tool. And when you measure that tool, it points right to his star. It's actually pointing to the star of Ishtar at 23.5 degrees. And in front of him is his solar disk, the disk of Shamash. And from his eye to the table to the top of the disk, it's also 23.5 degrees. And you have these two beings, or these two individuals above them holding a rope on the solar disk. Now remember the ropes at the first of the Egyptian thing? It's the ropes are pulling the sun. So you have two ropes holding the sun disk up. And that's also at 23.5 degrees. And everybody's saying, okay, Shamash is a giant. Like, you look at these small people. The interesting thing symbolically, and I'll just speak symbolically here, is that these three individuals are the three aspects of the sun. And when you measure these three individuals, so I put lines on them, and you take those lines and you measure the throne of Shamash, it's actually exactly the same. So all of this is a mathematical representation of a calendar. and the numbers of the Earth of our seasons. And this is the Marduk around the same time period. And you can see he's holding there's these poles coming out through his back, and they all have the stars on them or the sun. And when you measure those, it's so obvious that all those stars, those poles, are 23.5 degrees. So it's showing you that they knew about this tilt of the Earth and the changing of the seasons.
That is crazy to me. It's just crazy.
Thousands and thousands of years before we're told. And, he's standing on an astrological symbol. You have Scorpio, you have the beast, Sagittarius. So these are all astrological symbols of the zodiac. Now, here is the
Dendera,
the most spoken about. Now, this is really complicated. I know I put a lot of lines here, but I'm just trying to show you how incredibly aligned this image is that every single eye and belly button in this image aligns with the maximum and the major lunar declination at 28.5 degrees, the yearly solstice cycle, 23.5 degrees, the minor lunar declination at 18.5 degrees, and the 15 degrees, the way the sun travels per hour in the sky. So what you're looking at is a very complicated motif of the cycles of life on Earth. And
but it's a light bulb.
I'll just speak symbolically. Is that serpent is the Ka, is what grants life to Earth, and this is why it's coming out of the lotus flower. And the lotus flower contains this Ka, which is the Ka of Ra, the Ka of Osiris, and which gives life to Earth. Now, you can see that these two figures that are holding the lotus flower with the serpent coming out of it, they're doubled. And the reason they're doubled is to show that it's the physical body and the Ka body, which is what the gift of life is those two
Why
bodies.
Why is it so
one.
mechanical?
I don't know why. But what I will say is this is about 1,000 years earlier than the Dendera light bulb. So you can see the serpent.
Mm-hmm.
So this is in a tomb of Ramses, and it shows the serpent bound. So this is Apophis bound. And what you see as well is it's in the same position almost as the lotus flower and the serpent. So it's the same style of motif.
Mm-hmm.
And again, from the base of the tail to the eye, it's 23.5 degrees. From the staff of Anubis to the eye is 23. To his eye to the serpent is 23.5 degrees. And his body is laid out at 15 degrees to his eye. So again, these are all solar motifs mathematically hidden within these stories and hieroglyphs. So again, it's like this is a knowledge that is there. So basically, I could put this on anything and show you. This is also from Dendera. It shows you the solar boat on the Minette necklace. And again, so these are the gates of the gods. You have the gates on the top of Hathor's pillar. So these are the times of the year that the sun moves on its boat from different seasons, different houses. And if you see the knots coming out to hold the top of the Minette necklace, there's these knots at the top, these 4 strands. If you count each knot, it comes to, I'm just, this is off the top of my head, so I hope I'm correct. It's 91 knots. And what's really interesting about that number is that it takes 91 days for the sun to travel from spring equinox to summer solstice. Takes 91 days. So all these numbers are representation of the movement or a motif of an astrological calendar. Now, this is one of the most beautiful images from Dendera. And this is a photograph that a great author, he wrote a book called Dendera Temple of Time, The Celestial Wisdom of Ancient Egypt, Jose Maria Barrera. And so I thank him for allowing me to use his images. So this is the celestial boat of Osiris.
It's one of the most incredible things I've ever seen in my life. I've shot video of this. I've shot pictures of it, and I've stood and stared up. It's perfect. Now this sits also, everybody, I'm going to guess, and it's like 60 feet up.
Oh yeah. So, you really, thank God we have photography where we can capture this image perfectly.
Right.
And I'm not going to get into every single character here because it's just too much to go through, but I'll just show you the image. And this is right next to it. So you have this image, and then right next to it is you have this image, which is the eye of the moon, and you have Thoth. You have the 14 gods going to the full moon. You know, what's the number 14? It's the number of nights it takes for a moon to go from a new moon to a full moon. Wait, yes, that's correct. From new moon to full moon takes 14 nights. And that's why Osiris was divided into 14 pieces, is because he was basically killed as the moon, and then his body pieces were put back together to create the full moon. And this is what we're seeing in this image. But I'm going to get a little detailed here. What I'm trying to say is this entire image is created to hold the knowledge of heaven and earth. All right. So we have to think like the Egyptians. We have to think like these mystic astrological priests and how they speak to us, because we just see beautiful doodles and we don't think much about it. But this is extremely complicated. This is like a PhD in astronomy looking at this. And what I mean by that is, let's take a look at this image. So this is above the boat. You have the winged disc of Khafre, which is the beetle. You have the Waz scepters, which are this V shape. These scepters face like a V. You have the Ankh, the Waz, the Ankh. Then you have the Waz on these kind of scales on each side. And the Khafre, the beetle, is standing on a symbol called the Shen, which means eternity or eternal cycles is what it means. Now, if we lay that knowledge above it, you can see that the whole thing is set up exactly to show the angles of the solstice, the 23.5 degrees, and the 28.5 degrees, which is the lunar major standstill of 18.6 years. And you can see the lines go directly into the eyes of the Waz and the eyes of the serpents at the crown there. Here is Anubis. And when we measure Anubis, he holds in his body posture the angles of 18.5 degrees and 28.5 degrees, which is the moon cycles. And Anubis is the god of funeral rites. He's the god of the dead. He protects the dead. And he guides them through the underworld. Well, what's the underworld? It's the nighttime. And what do the dogs do? What do jackals do at night? They holler at the moon, right? So they were connected to the night and the moon. And you can see his body posture. Every part of his body is angled to these moon angles. If we go to the opposite side, we have Horus, and you can see that every part of Horus's body is angled to the sun. So at 23 and 15 degrees.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So this knowledge of the sun and the moon is defined directly into their postures and their design. So if we look at this, and I know this is going to be complicated, but I want you to notice their staffs and their eyes. Because when we overlay this image, every single part of this image tells a story geometrically. So if we connect every single eye to staffs, it shows you which character represents either the sun or the moon and how they traverse time. So it's a very complicated system, but it's also so beautiful once you understand how this knowledge is being passed from generation to generation, completely hidden from us. I don't know any person on earth that has figured this out yet.
You can't unsee it once you know it's there.
That's correct. And now you can take artifacts from all over the world and put it together. So here's another one from the Valley of the Kings. I think it's also from Ramses' tomb. And here you have the Eye of Horus. The left eye of Horus is also known as the Eye of Horus or the lunar eye. And the right eye of Horus is also known as the Eye of Ra or the solar eye. Now, if you look at the moon, for example, I'm just going to zoom in here for a second and just flip it around.
No,
So you
come
can
on.
see.
This isn't. Now you're making stuff up.
No, I'm not. I'm not. But okay, you see the serpent underneath? If you count the serpent, the folds of the serpent, you get to 18 and a half, basically, or 19 turns of the serpent. And what you're looking at is the lunar cycle. The serpent is the lunar cycle. It's 19, it's the metonic cycle of 19 years, or it's 18.6 year lunar standstill. And then when you look at the eyes, if you look at the eyes closer, you can see one eye is straight, has this drop down, and then this long path. When you measure that long path, it's about 23.5 degrees exactly. And then when you go to the moon side, it's 28.5 degrees. But look, there's this little notch in this thing under the eye. And when you measure that little notch, it comes to 18.5. So these are the angles of the moon.
Man, that's interesting.
So, this goes back, like I said, 3,000 years or more. And this knowledge is right here in front of us. Now, the crazy part about this is you have this knowledge in Egypt. So here's the staff god again with the Waz scepters. And you can measure the head of the Waz going down the center of the Ankh to this base. And again, it's set exactly to 23.5 degrees. Now you go to the other side of the planet. So we're in Egypt now. Go to the other side of the planet to Bolivia. And you have the gate of the sun in Bolivia. And when you overlay, see, it's another staff god. And when you overlay the image, the entire image is also created by the 23.5 degree angle. In fact, it goes into the eyes of those staffs. So what you're looking at is two completely different cultures separated by oceans and thousands of years, but they create their symbology using the same code, the same language of the sun.
Yeah. I just stood in front of the gate of the sun at Tiwanaku.
Mm-hmm.
And this is central. This is above the opening, right? It's right in the middle.
Yes.
But you can't help but think of the importance of that temple site and where everything is placed. And to have this there in the middle of the gate, with the 23.5 degrees presented there, it's astounding to me. It's astounding. And I just stood there. And as a matter of fact, Jason, I've got pictures. I won't do it now. But when the last time I was there, the sun, there was it was a storm that was coming in, and the sun was battling to come through the clouds, right? Mm-hmm. But the way that it illuminated the gate of the sun on the top of Tiwanaku was mind-blowing.
Wow.
And I got to stand there and experience that. It was just absolutely incredible.
Wow. No, take me next time, please.
6 months.
Okay. Now, this one blew my mind completely because this is a Venus that was found, it's called the Venus of La Salle, which is in France, and it's 25,000 years old.
This is famous artifact.
Famous artifact, 25,000 years old. So
Mm-hmm.
I said, you know what? Let me just see if this artifact follows the code. And I am completely blown away. I can't even talk about it, like, because every aspect of this image is designed with the angle at 28, or it's actually 29 degrees, because the tilt of the Earth was a little different 25,000 years ago, which is really interesting too. So that this image is set up for the major lunar standstill. Those are the main angles that are used to create this image. So the Venus holding her horn is all set to 29 degrees. So how far back does this knowledge go that that we've rediscovered?
Yeah, this particular goddess, this artifact, has been dated to at least 23,000 years old. There are other Venus goddesses that are also very old, by the way, around. But yeah, this is incredible. So at least 23,000 years.
So let me just stop sharing now. I think that's it. Yeah, that's my. Oh, we did good. We did good. So that is the what I wanted to share in the article, and I wanted to put that into the public domain. Like, I know everybody can go out and, you know, buy the book and really get into this information, but I feel that this knowledge is too important to just have in a book. It needs to be public. It needs to be free. It needs to be sent to people and given to people, because what we're looking at is a very advanced knowledge that has been hidden within our most ancient artifacts around the world, in a way that's right in front of us, so that once we understand how they transmitted knowledge, we can recognize it in their artifacts. And you remember when, you know, I first reached out to you, because that's what started the Astral Genesis book. And you could see on the cover, I actually have that image from Dendera that we looked at before, because I knew, like, that was the code. Like, once you understand that, that's the code. And I've looked all over the world, from China to South America, North America, Central America, Egypt, Middle East, Persia. You know, it's all there. I mean, you can find this code in civilizations around the world. So this is a huge mystery that exists, because we have the evidence of it. We just don't understand the who, and I can guess the why, because it's extremely important, because this is vital information. You had to know the sky and the movements to basically survive, know when to plant, know when to harvest, and to have those records in the artifact, so that if something happens, like, again, an ancient cataclysm, and all knowledge is lost, you still have these things carved into stone.
And now, and to see the gate, the representation of a gate with just about every culture on this planet. Now, I have photographed it myself. I have been there. I've seen it. It's there. But to incorporate that, not only around the world, but there is something that is being presented and preserved for us today. It's clearly right there. But when you get into, Jason, this is the big deal here. When you get into the precession and 23.5 degrees in the tilt, there is no way, if we listen to the scholars and the historians, that ancient man had knowledge of this. If we listen to them, they didn't have the tools. They didn't have the math. They didn't have the geometry. They didn't have the ability. They didn't have the astronomy. None of that came into play. But clearly, it is there. And they are showing it to us. And it's just not one culture. So the fundamental thing that anybody's going to say with this is, okay, Well, where did the knowledge come from? We can't dance around this. Where did the knowledge come? Who taught these cultures this information about the stars and our Earth and its tilt and the seasons and the solstice? It's not just about looking, December 21st when if the sun was going to be there for 3 days or not, at the same angle. It's not about that. That's elemental. That's fundamental.
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand? So who was walking around with this knowledge, or was it in those purses?
That is the $1 million question. So we've established that it's there. We're not hallucinating these things. It's clearly marked in their artifacts. And the thing that's beautiful is the Temple of Hathor in Dendera. That entire place is a map of the stars. And the motifs themselves are all created with these angles. So if I were to start as a historian or an archaeoastronomer, I would take this knowledge that I presented and go right to the Temple of Hathor and Dendera and start measuring these things, because once you do, you're going to start to understand which character represents solar aspects, which represents lunar aspects and cycles, and then the stars. And Jose Barrera's book about Dendera, he literally breaks down every single image in that space to tell you what composition means which stars. Like, that's how detailed this stuff is. It's incredible.
Now, we're going to close out. I'm going to show you some stuff here really quick.
Sure.
Kind of close out with it. I just want your comments. Now, this is one of my favorite images. Now, this is Puma Punku. All right. There it is. Right? Yeah. There it is. Now, this is in a giant stone. Now, I'm just going to scroll through this. This is what is crazy to me. We're not talking about Mesopotamia. We're talking about Egypt. We're not talking about the Temple of the Seven Gates of Karnak. We're not talking about KV-14. No, this is 10,000 miles in the other direction in South America. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm walking around and I see this. This is the cover of Jason's book, by the way, right? There's another stone. Now this is an H block, Jason. This is an H block. What is carved into the H block?
It's the gate.
The gate. What's down here?
Another gate.
Right?
Yeah.
Let's keep going. This is another. It says, wait. What? Repeating over and over again. It says another block. There's another H block. What is right there? What is right there? Right? Yeah. Now, we can talk about the H's all day long and the precision. What is going on here? Okay, let's go. There's a close-up. There's another one. This is another H block, Jason. Yeah. How clearly do you need this represented? Right? Let's keep going.
I just wish that I could take this image and put it next to the gate of the god at Hathor, Hathor. It's almost identical. And same thing with the Sumerian gates. They're exactly the same.
Yes, the Sumerian gates. They're exactly the same. Here it is, carved in another piece of rock, a Puma Punku. Look.
Yeah, that's amazing. The T1, the thin T1 up there is really interesting. Wow.
And so as I'm walking around, look, this is just cast a boot. Look, I'm speaking Canadian. This is cast a boot. This is just sitting in the grass.
Amazing.
Right? And as I walk around here and I see this, look, there it is right there. Let me pause this. Did you see the stone right here? Look.
Wow.
There it is. And you just go around Puma Punku and you freeze frame anywhere here. Look, what's here? Right?
Yep, the gates.
It's everywhere you look. There's something going on here. It's very important. And the ancients, Jason, were trying desperately to preserve this and show us. And we're talking about continents, oceans apart with the exact same math, now the temple, the gate of the sun gate that Jason showed from Tiwanaku, that is a stone's throw away from where I'm standing right here at Puma Punku. It's literally a parking lot away, right on the other side. And that's where that is. Just incredible to me. I still do my best. I know I struggle with this, but the more that I see what is going on and I'm trying for myself. Look, okay, I'm gonna add this. Here we go. You ready?
I'm ready.
This is the video.
Oh,
okay, it's up on the screen. Now just look. These are just stones sitting in the dirt. But what do you see there? Look at the top. Look at this. What is it that they are
these gateways were extremely important to them. So we have to ask ourselves, what are these gateways? What do they represent? What do they symbolize? And again, they're scattered on the ground. So my theory is that this was disassembled and destroyed, as in this knowledge. Because, when I first went to Peru, and you listen to the historians and the shamans there, they always talk about how when people would come over there, they would say that these temples are of the devil, and they would literally destroy them. So we don't actually know what these temples looked like, because they basically employed so many people to tear down these stone structures and scatter them or reuse the blocks for churches or other things, that we have no idea what the actual extent of these temples were. And I don't think we'll ever know the exact extent of these.
And the other problem, look at this. It's one of these doorways after another, just going down. And there's another one. And I tried to, it's everywhere. Once you see it, they're everywhere. They're absolutely everywhere. I think the important part, if we're going to relay some kind of message, the people that the Spanish encountered, and even the Inca, when they came onto these sites, they were like, who did this? The gods. They were already here when we got here, right? So there isn't any answers. Nobody's got, we don't have it, but they are carved in stone for us to see today and to figure out. And it takes researchers like you to get this stuff done.
The issue, I think, with a lot of these cultures, and it's from our perspective, is that a lot of these cultures, they came there and these temples were already built and they were abandoned. And for them, they were sacred sites. So they inherited these things. They don't know how they were built. They couldn't reproduce them, but they're sacred of the gods, or they're sacred sites for astrological viewing. Basically, they align to the stars, they align to the sun, they align to the moon, and they realize that and use it for ceremonial sites. And they were protectors of these sites. So even though we attribute these different sites to different cultures, they may not be the cultures that built them.
That's exactly right. The cultures that did communicate this said exactly that. Right? It wasn't us, man. No, it was here. It was already here. Jason, I'll see you next month right here in Los Angeles, California. Conscious Life Expo. Everybody, consciouslifeexpo.com. The links are below. You can check out all of Jason's stuff and the full schedule of all the speakers, and come and hang out with us at the LAX Hilton. And then after that, in May and June, of course, Contact in the Desert. Jason, go shovel your driveway, my man.
I will. Thank you. And thank you for letting me share this information with everybody.
You're the absolute very best. Jason Quitt. Thank you so much, Jason. Stay warm up there. Okay. Jason Quitt, and what a great night on the show. Another perfect night here on Fade to Black. Tomorrow night, Fritz Zimmerman is going to be with us. We're going to be talking about the dark side of ancient America. All of that and much more tomorrow night. Thank you so much, Jason. All I've got for now, of course, is go back Lee Tappy. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Special thanks to Bill, John, Dex, Jessica, Dennis, and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music by Doug Aldrich. Intro, Space Boy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Go back, Lee Tappy.